There's a place on this planet that America owns, and most Americans have absolutely no idea it exists. It's not a military base. It's not a classified government facility. It's not even on land. It's a scar, a wound in the ocean floor so deep, so dark, so utterly hostile to life, that we have sent more humans to the surface of the moon than to its bottom. We're talking about the Mariana Trench. And here's what your geography teacher never told you. It's American territory. Let me hit you with something that sounds completely made up. The deepest point on the entire surface of planet Earth, a place almost 7 miles straight down, is a United States national monument, declared by President George W. Bush, January 2009. That's right, the most extreme, most alien, most inhospitable location on our planet belongs to the same country that put a man on the moon. America owns the highest human achievement in space and the lowest point on Earth. Let that sink in for a second. But how does America own it? The Mariana Islands, that chain of volcanic islands sitting right next to the trench, are U.S. territory. Guam, the largest island, is an unincorporated U.S. territory. The Northern Mariana Islands are a U.S. Commonwealth, first spotted by Magellan in 1521, colonized by Spain, taken by the United States after the Spanish-American War in 1898. And because those islands are American, the waters surrounding them, including the trench, fall under American jurisdiction. America literally owns the deepest place on Earth, and almost nobody talks about it. Now here's where this story gets truly terrifying. Ask yourself, what's the most alien place you can think of? Mars? The dark side of the moon? Deep space? Wrong. The most alien environment known to science is right here, on Earth, right now, beneath the Pacific Ocean. At the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, the conditions are so extreme they almost defy belief. The pressure reaches over 1,000 atmospheres, 1,000 times what you feel on your skin right now. Think about that for a moment. If you were teleported to the bottom of the trench without protection, you wouldn't drown. You wouldn't freeze. You would be compressed. Instantly, like a grape under a hydraulic press. A steel-hulled military submarine, the kind built to survive depth charges and combat, would be crushed like an aluminum can before it ever got close to the bottom. The temperature, just above freezing, around 35 degrees Fahrenheit. And the darkness, absolute, total, eternal. No sunlight has ever touched the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Not once, not in the entire history of Earth. It is, in every measurable way, more hostile to human life than the surface of Mars. And yet, something lives there. Our story starts 150 years ago, with a British warship stripped of its cannons and transformed into something the world had never seen before. A floating laboratory. The HMS Challenger set sail in 1872 on a mission to map the ocean floor. For 4 years, its crew dragged lead-weighted ropes into the darkness, measuring depth the old-fashioned way. Near the Mariana Islands, they recorded something that stopped them cold. 8,200 meters, over 26,000 feet. The crew could barely process the number. That's more than 27 Eiffel Towers stacked end to end, vanishing into black water below. But here's the part nobody tells you about the Challenger crew. They were genuinely terrified. Sailors of that era believed in monsters, not as metaphors, as real, living things. Creatures the size of ships, tentacles that could drag a vessel under in seconds, leviathans rising from the dark. And as they lowered their ropes into those depths, watching the line disappear kilometer after kilometer, the fear was very real. Because something was pulling back, the ropes were moving. They told themselves it was currents, or their imagination. But was it? We'll come back to that. Fast forward to 1960. The Cold War is at its peak. Two men decide to do something most scientists considered a death sentence: descend to the very bottom of Challenger Deep. Jacques Piccard, a Swiss engineer, and Don Walsh, a U.S. Navy lieutenant, climb into a vessel called the Trieste. It looked less like a submarine and more like a giant steel egg bolted to a floating gas tank. Their descent takes nearly 5 hours. At 330 feet, 10 atmospheres of pressure. At 3,300 feet, 100 atmospheres. At 16,000 feet, the darkness is absolute. The cold bites through the hull. At 30,000 feet, a crack. The sound of a gunshot. Somewhere inside the vessel, a plexiglass observation window had fractured under the pressure. The two men looked at each other. They kept going. At 35,814 feet, the Trieste touched the sea floor. Two human beings, for the first time in history, had reached the deepest point on Earth. And as the sediment settled around them, a fine white dust called diatomaceous ooze, so thick Don Walsh described it as looking through a bowl of milk. He pressed his face against what remained of the fractured window, and something moved. Something pale, something flat, something alive. Life, at a depth where life should be flatly impossible. Here's the detail that never makes headlines. In 64 years, only 7 human beings have ever reached Challenger Deep. That's fewer people than have walked on the moon. The moon. We know more about the lunar surface than we know about the deepest place on our own planet. Now, this is where it gets mythological, because the things that live in the Mariana Trench, they look like they were designed by a horror novelist with a PhD in biology. Let me take you down, layer by layer, 0 to 650 feet. The sunlit zone, familiar, warm, alive with color. Sharks, tuna, dolphins. This is the ocean you know. 650 to 3,300 feet. The twilight zone. The light fades. Here lives the bristlemouth, a tiny silver fish, unremarkable in size. But there are more bristlemouths on Earth than any other vertebrate in existence. Quadrillions of them. More than every bird, every mammal, every reptile on the planet combined. You've never heard of the most common vertebrate on Earth, 3,300 to 13,000 feet. The midnight zone. No sunlight, no warmth. Pressure at 100 atmospheres. Here lives the barrel-eye fish, a creature with a fully transparent head. You can see straight through its skull. Its eyes are tubes pointing upward through the clear dome of its own head, scanning for the silhouettes of prey above. And then there's the anglerfish. The female anglerfish carries a bioluminescent lure dangling from her skull like a glowing fishing rod. In the absolute darkness, smaller creatures see only the light, and they swim toward it. It's the last thing they ever do. But here's the detail that truly unsettles people. The male anglerfish is 10 times smaller than the female. When he finds a mate, he bites into her skin, and then he merges with her. His body fuses into hers. His organs dissolve. He becomes part of her, permanently, a living packet of reproductive material she carries for the rest of her life. 13,000 to 20,000 feet. The abyss. Giant isopods, armored crustaceans the size of footballs. Spider crabs with legs spanning 13 feet. Animals so enormous they seem impossible. This is deep-sea gigantism, the phenomenon where pressure and cold drive creatures to grow to monstrous sizes. Scientists still don't fully understand why. 20,000 to 36,000 feet. The Hadal Zone. The trench itself. Here, amphipods, tiny shrimp-like creatures, grow to nearly a foot long, 10 times their normal size. Single-celled organisms called xenophores grow to the size of soccer balls. One single cell, the size of a soccer ball. And at the very bottom, in the absolute darkness, under pressure that would kill everything you know, bacteria thrive on chemicals. Not sunlight, not food, raw chemicals seeping from cracks in the Earth's crust. These organisms may be the closest living relatives to the very first life on Earth. Because some scientists now believe life didn't begin in a warm, sunlit pond. It began here, in the dark, under the pressure, inside the chemical vents of the deep ocean. Which means, if you want to know where you came from, you might want to look into the abyss. Here are the details that never make it into documentaries. The trench is geologically alive. Near Challenger Deep, scientists have discovered mud volcanoes releasing methane gas from deep inside the Earth's crust. There are pools of liquid CO2 sitting on the seafloor like invisible lakes. Carbon dioxide so dense it sinks and just sits there, perfectly still. There are hydrothermal vents where water reaches 750 degrees Fahrenheit, without boiling because the pressure is too extreme, just inches away from water that is near freezing. Two temperatures, side by side, that should not be able to coexist. We found plastic at the bottom. In 2018, researchers sent a probe to the deepest point on Earth. They expected pristine conditions, a world untouched by human civilization. Instead, they found a plastic bag and microplastics in the tissue of every single creature they sampled at the deepest point on the planet. Human pollution got there before most humans even knew the place existed. The Titan disaster changed everything. In 2023, the Titan submersible, a commercial vessel taking wealthy tourists to view the wreck of the Titanic, imploded on descent. 5 people were killed in milliseconds. The hull failed. The ocean did what it always does at depth. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't give warnings. 1 microsecond of structural weakness, and everything inside, pressure equalized instantly. And yet, brave, brilliant engineers keep building new ways to go deeper, to see more, because every single expedition to the Hadal Zone discovers species that have never been seen before. Every single one. We have mapped more of the surface of Mars than we have of our own ocean floor. Let that land. So, let me bring this back to where we started. America owns the deepest place on Earth. A national monument, declared by a sitting president, sitting in the Pacific, largely ignored, largely unexplored, almost entirely unknown to the people who own it. The Mariana Trench is not just a hole in the ocean. It is a portal to the origin of life on Earth, a laboratory for organisms that break every rule biology ever taught us, a graveyard of ancient ocean crust, 170 million years old, slowly swallowed back into the planet that made it. And it is full of creatures that look like myths made real. Transparent skulls, glowing lures, bodies that merge and fuse, animals the size of a soccer ball made from a single cell. If you wanted to design a monster, something truly alien, truly terrifying, you wouldn't need to dig through folklore. You just need to look down, 7 miles down, into the dark that America owns. If this video pulled you into the abyss, hit subscribe, because we are just getting started. Every week, we go deeper, into the creatures that shouldn't exist, into the places science can barely explain, into the myths that turned out to be real. The ocean is waiting, and you haven't seen its bottom yet.